right now. How many of those toxic M&Ms are being watched by FBI, CIA, DHS, you name it, the alphabet agencies? How many of these toxic M&Ms are being watched right now? They say at least, 1,000. Why don't they take them out of the dish? Why don't they remove the toxic M&Ms now? What are they waiting for, someone to eat a toxic M&M? See, I have to make my analogy simple enough for the average doubting Thomas to understand what I'm saying to you. Have I done that? Have I sufficiently awakened you to the danger you're in? You know what's ironic here? You have the liberal, the progressive, if you want to call them that. Of course, it's a regressive. They'll root out the smallest additive in dog food you could imagine. If they look through a dog food list, and if they see one chemical for their dog that might be harmful, if it was in 1,000 times greater amount than it's in that food, they will not buy that food. They will root out the slightest insult that might be racist. Well, root it out. Get that out of there. Tear down statues of Civil War leaders. Just cut it out because it's so offensive and so hurtful. And yet when it comes to a situation like this, they're blind. How is that possible that the people who are so sensitive to additives, to alleged racism, to alleged slights, how come they're not sensitive to this threat to their very existence? I'm sorry, there's only one answer, fill in the blank. Liberalism is a mental disorder. So if you're going to let mentally disordered people, whether they be a postman or a president, run national policy, you can see why the bombs are going off. It's that simple. See, if it was me, I'd throw the whole dish of M&Ms in the garbage. I wouldn't eat any of them. And that means that you stop all Syrian refugees from coming in because you cannot vet them. You have no idea which one of them is a Trojan horse being smuggled in as a refugee. That's all. And you say, no, we can't afford it at a time of terror. So what's the answer? You leave all the poor innocent women and children and men to suffer? No, I've given you the answer. Before my hero, Donald Trump, gave you the answer, I gave it to you. Build a safe haven in the Syrian desert. Build it, no matter what the cost is. And then surround it with concertina wire and put UN troops all around it in watchtowers. Let the UN do something. Let them do something. Or get troops from friendly Arab nations to man those guard booths, if there is such a thing. And protect the Syrian people. Let them build their own little village until the ISIS maniacs are subdued by Russia. And then you let the Syrians go back home and rebuild their country, but you certainly don't bring them in here. You got to be crazy. You got to be nuts. Has anyone in the history of radio given you a better analogy that I've given you today on the M&M analogy? No, no one has. So I hope it's been, worth your while to tune into the show. I'm well known for my insights. Sometimes they're simplistic like that one, but they do make their point, don't they? It's so simple that even a child can understand it. When your child says, Mommy, why are you against bringing in those nice poor women and children from Syria? And you tell them about the M&Ms. You don't know which M&M might be toxic, but there's one amongst 100. So you don't eat any of the M&Ms, Janie. Oh, Mommy, I understand. You mean one of the refugees might be a bomber? Yes, Janie. And so we can't let them in, Janie. Not until this is all sorted out, Janie. Savage Nation, be here or be nowhere.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of unprotected thought, borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
As president, my first priority is the safety of the American people. And that's why even as we accept more refugees, including Syrians, we do so only after subjecting them to rigorous screening and security checks. We also have to remember that many of these refugees are the victims of terrorism themselves. That's what they're fleeing.
Yeah, you're right.
Slamming the door in their faces would be a betrayal of our values.
He knows value.
Our nations can welcome refugees who are desperately seeking safety and ensure our own security. We can and must do both.
Islam is not our adversary. Muslims are peaceful and tolerant
we got the
people.
message. We got it. We have deranged lunatics running the asylum. It's like going into a psychiatric ward and finding out the psychiatrist is crazier than the patients. I mean, I'm sorry to be so harsh, but I'll give you an analogy that works in another direction for those of you who have nuance and are very sophisticated and find men like me and Donald Trump lacking nuance and sophistication, lacking a certain Vivaldi-esque speech pattern. Those of you who find me offensive because I sound like an old longshoreman from the docks of New York City, kind of like on the waterfront in the age of Marlon Brando, and sort of cast by Elia Kazan. For those of you who find my gravelly voice offensive, let me use my primitive logic. I'll do the best I can without the nuance that you are used to from the geniuses in the government media complex. And I'll use the same analogy I've used for about 30 minutes now, something that even you might understand, no matter how nuanced you are. Are you ready for it? Somebody gives you a dish of 100 M&Ms of various colors, and they tell you that only one of them, or two of them, that would be 1 or 2%, are toxic. But they don't tell you which one is toxic because they don't know, and there's no way to screen those M&Ms for the toxic compound. Well, there is a way. I mean, you'd have to analyze every M&M. You have to put every one of them through very rigorous chemical analysis. And in order to do that, you'd have to, first of all, not put the M&Ms in a dish to begin with. You would have to have screened all the M&Ms with very complicated, expensive analysis in order to know which ones might be toxic. Now, you know and I know what the analogy means. It means you don't eat any of those M&Ms. It means you don't let any Syrian refugees in because you cannot vet them. It's impossible. So what they're saying is, let's let 10,000 or 100,000 in, and if only 1 or 2% of them are bombers, we'll catch most of them, and if only a few of those get through, so what? That's the price of doing business. It goes back to the analogy that Karl Marx wrote, Obama's grandfather, Karl Marx, when he said, if you want to make an omelet, you got to break a few eggs. Now, that's what ISIS is practicing, by the way, the same crazed ideology as the communists. What did Karl Marx mean when he said, if you want to make an omelet, you got to break a few eggs? Blow up cafes, blow up stadiums, until eventually the scrambled egg is so weakened and frightened that it becomes an omelet that you control, that you made. George Soros is the omelet maker. Barack Obama is the chef. Hillary Clinton is a chef. But the omelet maker is actually people who are so deranged and have so many billions of dollars to spend that they are creating havoc across the globe for all of us to suffer through. Government zero, in other words, no borders, no language, no culture. I've been trying to warn you about this for 21 years. That's been my mantra. And when I started on the radio in 1994 and I said, people ask me, how do you define a nation? I was forced to think about it when I first created the Paul Revere Society. Many of you in the Bay Area remember me. Remember the events I had. Name them and Saving the Real Private Ryan, 2,000 people. Name them and shame them. Try them and fry them. Remember those great events? Don't call on that. So those were the progenitor events to the Tea Parties of today. And here we are now, 21 years later, of the same exact message. In the beginning, I was reviled and laughed at across America. They called me every name under the sun. People wanted nothing to do with me. And now they wake up and they say, holy God, we better secure our borders or God knows what might happen. And really, we need to do something about this Tower of Babel that's been created by our tolerance. And as far as culture goes, I didn't know what Savage meant by culture. I thought it was some kind of racism he was talking about. But by God, he's right. I don't really want to get on a prayer rug. I really don't want to pray to Mecca 6 times a day. We have our own culture, don't we? The culture I've hated my whole life, that Judeo-Christian stuff, and that primitive Bill of Rights put out by those old white men. Gee, maybe that culture wasn't so bad after all, says the weasel called the progressive. So here we are, hour 2, Friday. I'm supposed to play rock and roll today on Rock and Roll Friday. We're supposed to have a good time. And those of you who have babies in the house, you're not having a very good time, are you? If you have an infant in a crib or your wife is pregnant, you're not having a very good time, are you, these few weeks? Would you have a very good time? Would you let your child sell lemonade on a street corner anymore in America? Well, believe it or not, some idiots do. Yeah, I actually live in a number of places, and one of them is in a lily-white suburb. And I do so for a couple of reasons, one of which is to observe how the average white couple lives. They live in a delusion. They live in a delusional surrealism that you can't believe. They let little girls go out and sit on corners and sell lemonade, thinking that it's 1955. And it's just a cartoon of the world. And then this Islamofascism or rapists or murderers or kidnappers will not touch their family. They live in a delusion, a reality. There's no reality to them. Now, you take that same soccer mom who has been brainwashed in college, probably raised on drugs, probably eats a horrendous diet largely of sugar and caffeine, is on medication herself, and then you ask her what she thinks about the President of the United States, and she says, he's wonderful. Why, he's great. He's just doing a super job. And it's that Trump I don't like because and you ask him why, they don't know why. Why, I don't like him because, but I like that Hillary Clinton because, why do you like her? Well, I don't know. Because she's got a skirt? Or she wears a jumpsuit or a pair of pink jump. I don't know. What is it you like about Hillary Clinton? What in the world can you like about a woman who has the worst track record in the history of being a Secretary of State? Do you know that Hillary Clinton created the Arab Spring? If you said that to the average soccer mom, the blonde cheerleader, now 35, living in the suburb with 2 children, the slightly drug-addicted young ladies who were raised on medication, ADD, ADHD, Adderall, the Adderall women. If you ask them any serious question, they're incapable of answering you. But their mind is made up. Their mind is made up that they're progressives and they're proud of it. They don't know what it means. They think that progressive means the opposite of Republicans. They think progressive means a laissez-faire democracy, which, by the way, is what I believe in. Live and let live. I'm actually the most progressive person in radio. I believe in a laissez-faire philosophy. Live and let live. But if someone doesn't want to let you live, well, I guess that's what your police and your military is for. That's what we pay such high taxes for. Not for illegal aliens' flat-screen televisions. Not so their children get dental work. I don't mind paying such high taxes if it was... I wouldn't mind paying such high taxes if it went to combat in the Middle East and around the world. If the money went for bombs that said... Oh, I can't even tell you what I'd say. The Russians are writing inscriptions on their bombs right now. I tell you the truth, the Russians are the heroes of the West. Isn't that ironic that this double-talking phony with the deep voice from wherever he's from is hated around the thinking West, while Putin is seen as the hero? The Russian pilots are writing "This is for Paris" on their bombs. Can you believe this with paint? The same way our men used to write things on our bombs in World War II against Germany and against Japan, and the way the men did so in Vietnam. They wrote things on the bombs, but in this sick, demented, sick, feminized military, anyone who would do a thing like that would be court-martialed by the degenerates running the military that Obama's put handpicked in there. I have a report in my hand. 75% of the targets that our pilots have identified as verifiable military targets, they've been unable to bomb. They were told, don't bomb, by the girls behind the scenes in Washington. Did you know that every bomb that's dropped has to go through the sorority? There's some crazy drug fiends inside the White House or inside somewhere who give the orders as to which bombs are allowed to be dropped. No matter what the pilots say, no, they decide. The girls decide in between a cappuccino what bomb can fall. They come back with the planes loaded with their bombs. Can you believe this? Well, I know you think I'm making it up, but I'm not making it up. It's a story, it's a fact, it's reality. This is what happens when you have a Potemkin military under this crazed administration. I received an email on my Facebook, actually just a Facebook poster named Chris Hall May, and he wrote this. He said, by the way, I usually don't read all of the, people post, and then they say click for more. It'd take your whole life to read this stuff. But he's a soldier, active duty Army. He's a medic, 3 years of his life overseas, Afghanistan, Iraq. I've seen some pretty atrocious sights caused by war from both sides. I've picked up blown up body parts of friends, and I've saved the lives of guys who were trying to kill me. and my guys right before I was keeping them from their 72 virgins or whatever they believe awaits them on the other side.